You're in your apartment alone. Then you hear something. You think, was it just the storm? You realize you're not alone. Your living room is not safe with Unhinged, the new immersive game experience brought to you by Netflix. To make it out alive, you must answer the phone. The question is, when your phone rings, will you answer? Tap the banner to play Unhinged now, only on Netflix.
4th of July savings are happening now at the Home Depot with select appliances starting at $398. Plus, get free delivery on appliance purchases of $398 or more, no membership required. Upgrade your kitchen with a modern and sleek GE Profile refrigerator featuring hands-free autofill for the perfect pour every time. And make laundry day easier with 2-in-1 washer-dryer combo innovation that completes laundry in about 90 minutes. Shop top brand appliances now at the Home Depot. Offer valid June 17th to July 8th. US only. See store online for details.
Roger, that's over at Campbell Helmer.
Welcome to True Spies, Brief Histories. Season 2, Spy Cities. Our cities are the arena in which the great game of espionage is played, providing all manner of stage setting, from grand embassies to average-looking suburban homes. In these bonus minisodes, we'll draw on the knowledge of our True Spies experts to enhance your understanding of the secret forces that have always operated in the places we call home.
2 of our Allied mission comrades were actually killed. One was shot and the other was crushed. And so that sort of brought it all home to you.
I'm Joe Foley, series producer for True Spies, and this is a brief history of Berlin. Coal smoke rises from the skyline, the dark gift of 1,000 new chimneys. The river is choked with barges, running grey with mud, silt and sewage. It's the middle of the 19th century, and this is Berlin, the beating heart of industrial Prussia, then the strongest of the various German kingdoms that rose out of the ashes of the Holy Roman Empire. It's a city on the brink of an economic explosion, and is also the home of one Wilhelm Stieber, a pioneer in the field of political intelligence gathering. Stieber's father wanted him to join the clergy. Instead, he studied law and joined the Prussian police. It was among those ranks that Stieber happened upon a lifelong passion: paperwork. More specifically, files, sheaf upon incriminating sheaf of them. Name by name, card by card, Stieber compiled dossiers on political radicals, which by the late 1840s was increasingly seen as necessary to the security of the Prussian state. In 1848, Europe saw the most widespread wave of revolutions in its history, a slew of uprisings against the continent's conservative monarchies. To make matters worse, in the same year, a young German called Karl Marx published quite an influential pamphlet called The Communist Manifesto, all of which was symptomatic of a rise in political activity outside of the typically wealthy, educated circles that had dominated politics thus far. In the early 1850s, Stieber was assigned to take down Marx and his Communist League, some of whom were accused of fomenting an uprising in Cologne. He failed to nail Marx, who was safely sequestered in London, but he did succeed in bringing 11 communists to trial, 7 of whom went to prison. His evidence was suspect at best. In fact, Marx managed to prove that several key documents were forgeries, but that didn't stymie Stieber's rise. By 1853, he was director of Berlin's security division, a job which gave him certain insights into the city's high-class sex trade. Berlin's sex workers were always getting into trouble for blackmailing their wealthy married clients. For many, information was a form of security. Stieber saw an opportunity in that. He attempted to regulate the industry, a progressive idea for the time, but not one without an ulterior motive. By creating better conditions for the city's ladies of the night, he was able to persuade some of them to feed him information about the criminals and political radicals he was tasked with hunting down. In Berlin's brothels, Wilhelm Stieber had discovered the power of espionage. Before long, he'd be able to flex those muscles on a much larger scale. As Stieber's reputation grew, Otto von Bismarck, then the Minister-President of Prussia, began to rely on his intelligence more and more. Stieber's greatest test would come in the 1860s, when Prussia was gearing up for war with Austria, its only real rival for the leadership of a united German Empire, which was Bismarck's main ambition. So the Minister-President asked Stieber to set up a vast network of spies within Austria. Based on his observation of the increasing influence of the press in the 19th century, Stieber decided that his network would make extensive use of journalists. Why? Well, their access to people in power was generally pretty good. Journalism's all about relationships, after all. Plus, they were usually in dire need of some cash. Bankrolled by Bismarck, Stieber established an Austrian network so vast that it confounded the Austrians' relatively feeble attempts at counterintelligence. His spies revealed that Prussia's rival was unprepared for a major conflict, lagging behind on mobilization preparedness, logistical strength, and weapons tech. Stieber's covert press corps also planted stories that pitted the Austrian people against their government. This combination of information warfare and 19th century humor helped to ensure that, when the inevitable bloodshed did break out in 1866, it was over in just 7 weeks. Prussia was the victor, and within 5 years, Otto von Bismarck had united Germany as its first chancellor, ruling from, where else? Berlin. Wilhelm Stieber died in Berlin in 1882, but the surveillance machine he helped to establish didn't die with him. After World War I, Germany was thrown into chaos. Economic hardship and a deep-seated sense of fatigue with the status quo spawned new political groups on the left and right. Their respective paramilitary organizations fought pitched battles in the streets. Now, if you've got a working knowledge of this period, you know where that all led, and what the future held for the people of Berlin. But there's a lesser-known chapter in that history that's all about the kind of political policing that Wilhelm Stieber pioneered in the 1850s. Munich, 1919. German military intelligence hires a 30-year-old veteran to act as an informant, keeping tabs on the city's upstart political parties. While their main focus is on the hard left, they send this particular agent to monitor a fringe right-wing group called the German Workers' Party. The party's leading man has a distinctive look, to modernise at least. A toothbrush moustache and a slick crop of dark hair. His name, believe it or not, is Anton Drexler. You've probably never heard of him. The same can't be said for the young man who infiltrated his organisation. Because during his time surveilling the German Workers' Party, this young man's innate talent for public speaking began to attract positive attention. What began as a semi-covert assignment soon blossomed into a genuine membership. Before long, this political agent would take over the Workers' Party from within, renaming it the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The Nazis, for short. His name, and there are no prizes for having guessed this already, was Adolf Hitler. Shortly after he became Chancellor of Germany in 1933, he tasked his number two, Hermann Göring, with the establishment of a new secret police, the Gestapo. It combined Prussia's political policing apparatus into one organisation, drawing on the legacy of Wilhelm Stieber's innovations and turning them towards an even darker purpose.
At ZocDoc, we know being a healthy adult is like living in a video game. Every day has side quests, taxes, laundry, birthdays, and just when you're leveling up, you have to book a doctor. The insurance portal crashes, they put you on hold, your doctor doesn't take your plan, game over. We see you, so we made booking a doctor easy. Download ZocDoc, search by specialty, insurance, and availability. Book instantly, no cheat codes required. Find a doctor you love with ZocDoc.
Introducing Taco Bell's new jalapeno citrus salsa. With bright citrus, real red jalapenos, guajillo chiles. Usually, you add sauce to the food, but when the sauce is this good, the food is just there to get the sauce to your mouth. That rolled quesadilla, not a rolled quesadilla anymore. Now it's a sauce shovel. Taco Bell's jalapeno citrus salsa. Get it with any item on the Cantina chicken menu while it's here. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only. While supplies last, contact store for availability.
Our next story begins, once again, a few hundred miles from Berlin. Bear with me. It's a hot summer evening in Nuremberg, 1933, halfway into Hitler's first year as Chancellor. In the city centre, the main road bustles with life. There's a celebratory mood in the air. From the window of her hotel, a 25-year-old American, Martha Dodd, looks out onto the cobbled streets below. She's visiting Nuremberg from Berlin, along with her brother and a mutual friend, a journalist. The trio decide to step outside and soak up some atmosphere.
And it's this festive crowd and bands playing and people in uniform and torches and all kinds of good stuff. And the center of it is this, what she originally thinks is a clown. And it's a woman in what's left of her dress. Her hair has been cut off and she's covered in some kind of white powder.
But Martha quickly realised this was no clown.
Her name was Anna Rath. And she's carrying a sign saying, like, I have given myself to a Jew. And she sees how all these nice Germans that she was so crazy about have been just how vicious and brutal and hateful they are to this poor woman who just looks dazed and humiliated. She thinks it's not representative of the Nazis. They're not really like that.
Martha, as it happens, is the wealthy daughter of the American ambassador to Germany. Her experience of the country so far has been positive, cosseted even. She loves the fun and frolics of Berlin's social scene and is inclined to give the Nazis the benefit of the doubt, despite what she's seen done to Anna Rath. No, Nuremberg isn't enough to dim her enthusiasm for Hitler's Reich. But over the next 4 years, Martha will undergo a political metamorphosis. Only a few weeks earlier, Martha had been floundering in Chicago. Her job bored her, and her personal life was a complete mess.
She was married to a guy that nobody knew about. Her father, she'd never told her parents that she'd secretly married him a year earlier. She wanted out. She had other boyfriends. She loved them all, but come on.
That's the voice of Brendan McNally, the author of Traitor's Odyssey, the first book about the remarkable Miss Dodd. When President Roosevelt offered Martha's father the ambassadorship, she was grateful for a chance to put her indiscretions behind her. At the same time, she'd heard that Berlin's vibrant nightlife had been severely muted by the Nazis' rise to power. But when she arrived, she was pleasantly surprised. She quickly fell in with a crowd of expats who frequented an Italian restaurant called Die Taverna. Their regular table would often welcome an assortment of high-flying Nazis, who she found to be pretty agreeable, actually. In fact, Martha soon developed a reputation for being, shall we say, liberal with the American embassy's secrets, which made her popular with journalists and Nazis alike. One of her local paramours was Ernst Udet, a former flying ace who was involved in the development of the nascent Luftwaffe, Hitler's air force.
He was one of the most popular Germans there was, and suddenly she's going out with him, and it's getting into all the papers, causing a scandal, and the people at the embassy who did not like the Dodds at all started referring to Martha as the Nazi penetration of America.
But Martha's most controversial conquest was Rudolf Diels, the 33-year-old head of the newly established Gestapo. It's surprising Diels had any time for matters of the heart, considering just how busy the Gestapo were in the early months of the Nazi regime. Across Berlin, communists were disappearing off the streets, spirited away to a new camp at Oranienburg, north of the city. Lawyers who had subpoenaed Hitler in the early 1930s met a similar fate, as did newspapermen who had been critical of the Nazis. So it's probably not surprising that Diels was keen to dazzle his American sweetheart with the efficiency and reach of his secret police.
What he shows her is that the Gestapo is bugging everybody. They have American-made dictaphones stuck into walls everywhere. And she learns the basis of spy tradecraft through him. She learns certain things. She learns that everybody's being watched, everybody's under suspicion, that there are no out of bounds.
But Martha was never a one-man kind of gal, and soon she'd transfer her affections to another, altogether different kind of guy. His name was Boris Vinogradov. Everybody loved Boris, A sharp dresser, handsome and witty. He was the press secretary at the Russian embassy, or at least that's what he told people.
He was a Romeo spy, and yeah, that was his job. He was the only guy at the embassy who got out. They have a passionate relationship where they're fighting and making up and fighting. Everything's at 11. Martha was just nuts for the guy.
Martha knew full well that Boris was a spy, and they often had intensely political conversations. Slowly but surely, he chipped away at her Nazi sympathies. Then, around a year into her time in Germany, Berlin was rocked by the Night of the Long Knives. Egged on by Hermann Goering and Heinrich Himmler, Hitler purged his paramilitary leadership and many other rivals besides. Finally, the scales fell from Martha's eyes. She became a full-blown anti-Nazi, and not a moment too soon, we might add. She began to help Boris gather intelligence for the Kremlin's NKVD. Her social standing and access to sensitive embassy documents eventually made her one of Stalin's best assets in Germany.
So from 1935-36, she's apparently a top agent of theirs. She's found somebody to sleep with. Who it was, I don't think anybody knows. And she got a lot of really good information during that period.
All good things come to an end, and by 1937, her sources in Berlin had dried up. Her father was recalled to the USA. But Martha wasn't done with the Soviets yet.
So she convinces them of her usefulness, and they get the idea that when she goes back to America, she could infiltrate the inner circle of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt.
But that's another story. For more about that and another 40 years spent gallivanting everywhere from Mexico to Czechoslovakia, you'll have to listen to True Spies 2-parter, The Misadventures of Martha Dodd. By the summer of 1944, the war was going very badly for Germany. The skies teemed with Allied bombers, and enemy forces were steaming toward Berlin on two fronts. But in the heart of the city, in one tall office block on Bendlerstrasse, a small group of men patiently plotted the death of the Führer. Ruthless Soviet agents? The daring saboteurs of Churchill's SOE? Nope. This shadowy cabal was as German as they come, drawn largely from the aristocratic ruling class that had held sway before the rise of the Third Reich. Some were moderate conservatives, outraged by Nazi ideology and war crimes. Others weren't, but resented the pervading influence of the SS, and blamed Hitler for a slew of military failures. No matter their differences, they were united by a common goal: one dead Austrian. This coalition of the willing was known to their enemies as the Black Orchestra. One conspirator with particular influence was Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, the head of the Abwehr, Germany's military intelligence service. He had supported Hitler up until the outbreak of war, but had become increasingly appalled by the Nazis' insatiable appetite for atrocity. But Canaris didn't control the Gestapo or the SS, whose tendrils extended into almost every facet of German life. So how did he get away with it? Well, he was a spy master of some repute. While the SS and the Gestapo suspected Canaris of something, he didn't leave them enough breadcrumbs to nail him down. Secondly, the operation relied on trust. Over the course of 1943, the Black Orchestra had approached some of Germany's most senior field commanders, asking them to join the plot. They all refused, but not a single one of them breathed a word of the conspiracy to the Gestapo. Basically, the Prussian officer class looked after their own. And if you think about it, the Gestapo were trained to break up underground resistance groups. This kind of high-level conspiracy among connected men was beyond their means. In the autumn of 1943, the Black Orchestra found the one thing they'd been missing so far: a man willing to pull the trigger, or rather, plant the bomb. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg was 36 years old, aristocratic, devoutly Catholic, and highly decorated in Russia and Tunisia. He wasn't a passionate Nazi, but like many of his peers, had tolerated their rise. But after losing an eye, a hand, and a couple of fingers in North Africa, he'd returned to Berlin scarred, angry, and convinced that Hitler had to go. On the morning of July 20th, 1944, Stauffenberg flew east out of Berlin with 2 bombs in his briefcase. His destination? The Wolf's Lair, Hitler's military headquarters deep in the Prussian forest. At the last minute, Hitler moved his regularly scheduled Situation Conference to a cooler room to escape the clammy summer heat. This room happened to contain a large oak table. Stauffenberg excused himself to the toilet, where he attempted to arm both bombs, which is generally easier with 10 fingers. He only managed one bomb before a guard hurried him along. So he walked into the conference room, placed the briefcase by Hitler's feet, and left. That should have been the end of Adolf Hitler. And it would have been had it not been for Colonel Heinz Brandt. Absent-mindedly, Brandt shuffled the briefcase behind the leg of the room's oak table. He didn't know it, but he just saved Hitler's life, albeit at the cost of his own. The bomb detonated at 12:42 p.m. The room was destroyed, 4 men were killed, 9 were seriously injured. All the bomb did to Hitler was perforate his eardrum and, allegedly, tear off his trousers.
This episode is brought to you by Palmolive. Family time isn't just the big moments, it's weeknight dinners, sitting around the table, everyone talking all at once. So when the plates are empty and the sink is full, use Palmolive Ultra. Palmolive's most powerful formula removes up to 99.9% of grease, leaving your dishes sparkling clean. And the new convenient pump makes cleaning even easier, so you can spend less time tackling dishes and more time together. Shop now at palmolive.com.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast instead of doom scrolling? Smart move. Another smart move? Getting help from one of State Farm's 19,000 local agents when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Nonetheless, old Adolf wasn't long for the world. 9 months later, he shot himself in his bunker. Within days, the war in Europe was over. Well, kind of. Within a decade, another war was in full swing. A war in which guns, bombs, and tanks took a back seat, and spies took centre stage. And nowhere on earth did the Cold War quite like Berlin. After World War II, Berlin was divided. Half communist, half capitalist. On one side was glitzy West Berlin, cocktail bars, currywurst, David Bowie, etc. On the other was East Berlin, brutalist tower blocks, wide, empty boulevards, and secret police. From 1961, a vast concrete wall stood between them, the Iron Curtain made flesh. East Germany, 1987. 2 British spies are sprinting through the undergrowth. It's the middle of a cold February night, and it's so dark that the men can hardly see their breath in front of them. Soviet troops are hot on their heels.
Our immediate concern then was them finding us with cameras and recording equipment, and we would be almost banged to rights as spies.
Dave Butler was one of those 2 men, part of a unique unit within the British Army, Bricksmiths. Since the end of World War II, a small group of British officers had been waved through the Iron Curtain with official permission to roam East Germany. Officially, they were there as liaisons. Unofficially, they were spies.
The British government basically didn't recognise the East German government, so therefore that meant that us, in a sort of a diplomatic role, could basically go where we want, do what we want in our vehicles, and we could basically break all the speed limits, ignore police, never stop for an East German, anybody in authority. And so, yes, it was a rather unique position in that we could actually, break all the laws, we could steal things with Her Majesty's government's blessing.
Dave was stationed in a manor in Potsdam, just outside Berlin. To enter the capital, he and his colleagues had to go over a bridge with a nickname you'll have heard before, the Bridge of Spies.
Our exit and entry into Berlin was different than for normal military units or anybody else leaving Berlin. They either went out through Checkpoint Charlie or Checkpoint Alpha to go down the corridor to go back to the west. But we were specifically the only ones allowed to cross the Glienicke Bridge.
Dave had moved his family to West Berlin in 1986. It was a strange life. By day, he was behind the Iron Curtain, dodging the KGB in grey East Germany. Every night, he came home to his wife and children. Neon lights, Coca-Cola, and synth pop.
West Berlin was very much the showpiece of the West, deep inside behind the Iron Curtain. And so the Western powers, the Americans, the French, and the British, who occupied Berlin, did their very best to showpiece what life was like to be in the West, knowing full well that, of course, Berlin was like a sieve. It was riddled with spies, watching everything, and seeing how life was, and doing their very best to stop anybody in the rest of East Germany seeing what it was like.
In the 1980s, tensions flared as America's new president, Ronald Reagan, clashed with Soviet leadership. For those working on these liaison missions, that tension was palpable.
2 of our Allied mission comrades were actually killed. One was shot and the other was crushed, and so that sort of brought it all home to you.
Which brings us back to that freezing February evening in 1987. Dave and a colleague were in a quiet stretch of East German countryside, where they'd heard that the Soviets were keeping a state-of-the-art military vehicle. Their mission? To take some pictures. Easy enough, right?
We went and found a spot on the edge of the woods overlooking this thing, and lo and behold, a couple of vehicles came round, and then, sure enough, this vehicle, this IPR as we used to call it, came along. So we took some pictures of it, and the commander of the vehicle was stood up. And I don't know what it is about people when you're looking at somebody, for some unknown reason, known only to them, they seem to stare right at you. And he seemed to look at us, and we thought he'd seen us, but he actually hadn't.
He might not have seen them, but he had seen someone else. Their getaway driver and his getaway car, which in pretty short order had to do just that.
He shouted something and drove on at speed. What then appeared was what we call a WAZ 469, which was a Soviet equivalent of a Land Rover Jeep. Came smashing through the woods, along the tracks. He was going for our vehicle. We then heard our vehicle do a high reverse down the wooded area, a J-turn at the end, and drive off. And of course, all the Soviet vehicles chased him. So there was me and the tour officer, then alone. We felt sure that they'd seen us.
Dave and his fellow officer did the only thing they could do, run deep into the dense pine forest. 1 hour became 2. 2 became 3. The Soviet commander didn't come back, but neither did their ride. Now at serious risk of capture, or worse, they buried their spy equipment in the snow. If worst came to worst, it wouldn't hurt to have a little deniability.
It got to about, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening. So we thought, OK, we better make a phone call.
Navigating from memory, they left the cover of the woods and trekked on until they found a pub.
And we knocked on the door, and it was very much like the old, open came the slit. And we said in our very best German, that we were military liaison officers and that we needed to make a phone call. We were not banking on anybody letting us into anywhere, and we knew damn well that in all probability they would report us, because they had a Stasi hotline they would ring, a bit like 999. The local population wouldn't try to detain you. Their main task was to just report you. It was the Stasi and others who would come along and do the strong-arm stuff.
But fate was smiling on Dave and his friend. The landlord was sympathetic, and at great personal risk to himself, he handed the Brits a phone. They called their embassy and arranged an extraction.
After we'd made the call, he did give us a drink, and we gratefully accepted a drink. The landlord and his family were taking immense risks in helping. It's funny, human beings always seem to go for the underdogs. I guess when he undid that door and he saw our eyes, he sort of took pity on us.
But that isn't the end of the story. In 2019, 30 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Dave retraced his steps and visited his one-time watering hole. The brave landlord had passed away, but his wife still remembered Dave.
She had preserved the front room exactly the same as the pub was all those years ago. And I have to say, there's not many times in my life when I've walked into somewhere, a room or whatever, and had one of those, what you call flashbacks. And I even went through into the room where the phone was in the corner, where we made the call from. And so it was a very emotional reunion.
You can hear more about life and death in Cold War Berlin in Dave's True Spies episode, Catch Me If You Can. Since the wall came down, Berlin has re-emerged as the de facto leader of a free Europe. As we speak, Germany is undergoing a historic period of rearmament, aiming to become the strongest conventional army in Europe by 2039. And wherever power blooms, espionage grows like lichen in the shadows. In April of 2026, Berlin police arrested a Kazakh national on suspicion of spying for the Russians. According to Politico magazine, the secrets he shared with his handler centered on the German government's military support for Ukraine, as well as military intel on drones and robotics. And it's not just the usual suspects at work. A recent report from Germany's domestic intelligence agency, the BFV, named Turkey's intelligence service as one of the top 4 foreign agencies active within the city, where it gathers information from its large Turkish diaspora about opposition movements at home. Whatever the future holds for Berlin, one thing is certain. It will remain Europe's ultimate spy city. I hope you've enjoyed this brief history of Berlin. If you want another taste of secrecy and debauchery, and Berghain won't let you in, you can check out some other True Spies tales that take place on these storied streets. There's the Baltic Baron, about an MI6 insider within Hitler's inner circle. Or there's James Steichkald's episode of the True Spies Debrief, where he walks us through the Rosenholz files, the microfilmed archive of East Germany's Foreign Intelligence Service. As always, if you want more episodes of True Spies a week early and ad-free, be sure to subscribe to SPYSCAPE Plus. You'll also get access to exclusive bonus content, like the Razumov Files, a modern retelling of Joseph Conrad's Under Western Eyes, and true crime caper, the great James Bond car robbery.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Uncovered windows can make your home feel up to 20 degrees hotter. Stay cool and save up to 50% off custom window treatments during the 4th of July mega sale at Blinds.com. From outdoor shades to room darkening blinds, finding the perfect fit is easy. Get free samples, expert design help, and professional measure and install services. Or DIY with confidence and support every step of the way. Shop up to 50% off site-wide, plus huge savings on doorbusters right now during the 4th of July mega sale at Blinds.com.
The most memorable gifts aren't found, they're made. Zazzle is a custom marketplace where you pick any product, a mug, a card, a tote, a phone case, and make it personal. A photo, a name, an inside joke. The kind of gift that actually fits the person. That's what 30 million customers have been coming back to Zazzle for over 20 years to find. Right now, save 25% on your first order at Zazzle.com. That's Zazzle.com. Make it zamazing.
You want to get your backyard summer ready, but you don't want to break the bank? Wayfair gets it. Planning on dining al fresco or relaxing poolside? Wayfair has everything you need to prep your space. Shop now and save up to 70% off during Wayfair's 4th of July clearance. Score huge deals on outdoor furniture, area rugs, and more. We're talking thousands of products for every style and budget. Plus, surprise flash deals July 6th. Don't wait. Shop Wayfair's 4th of July clearance now through July 6th at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.